There is a quiet rule in the world that most people never notice. The kinder you are, the more the world seems to take from you. You forgive people who hurt you. You help others even when it costs you something. You choose honesty when lying would make things easier. And yet, strangely, the people who manipulate, deceive, and play the game without morality often seem to rise higher. They get the promotions. They gain influence. They dominate rooms without apologizing. Meanwhile, the good people, the honest ones, the ones who try to live with integrity, often end up confused, exhausted, and wondering why life feels unfair. This contradiction has haunted human history for centuries, and one man looked directly at this uncomfortable truth without trying to soften it. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. While most philosophers tried to describe the world as it should be asterisk, Machiavelli described the world as it actually is asterisk. And his conclusion shocked people then, just as it shocks people today, because Machiavelli believes something most people are afraid to admit. Goodness alone does not protect you. In fact, sometimes goodness makes you easier to control. To understand this idea, we must travel back to Renaissance Italy, a world of beautiful cities, powerful families, secret alliances, betrayal, and ruthless political games. In this world, survival did not belong to the most moral man. It belonged to the most aware one. Machiavelli was born in Florence in 1469. Florence was not just a city. It was a battlefield disguised as a civilization. Power shifted constantly. Kings fell overnight. Friends betrayed each other for influence. And in the middle of this dangerous environment, Machiavelli served as a diplomat and political advisor. He watched rulers closely. He studied how power really worked. Not how people claimed it worked, but how it actually worked behind closed doors. And what he saw changed his understanding of human nature forever. He noticed something disturbing. The rulers who tried to be perfectly good often lost power quickly. But the rulers who understood human weakness, who knew when to appear kind and when to be ruthless, managed to stay in control. Machiavelli realized that morality and power were not always aligned. Sometimes they were in direct conflict, and this insight became the foundation of his famous book, The Prince Asterisk, a book that many people misunderstood. Some called it evil, others called it dangerous. But Machiavelli was not teaching cruelty. He was revealing something much deeper. He was showing the hidden mechanics of human behavior, because people like to believe they reward goodness. But reality is more complicated. People are emotional, they are selfish, they fear losing advantage, and they often respect strength more than kindness. This does not mean kindness is worthless, but kindness without awareness can become vulnerability. Imagine a chess game. One player refuses to capture any pieces because he believes attacking is immoral. The other player studies the board, anticipates moves, and uses every strategy available. Who wins? The answer is obvious. The moral player is not evil, but he is playing the wrong game. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He knew that the world rewards competence, perception, and control not just virtue. And that is why good people often lose. Not because goodness is wrong, but because goodness alone does not prepare you for manipulation. To see this clearly, let's examine a story from Machiavelli's life. During his time as a diplomat, Machiavelli closely observed one of the most fascinating political figures of the Renaissance, a man named Cesare Borgia. Borgia was not known for kindness. He was ambitious, calculating, and ruthless. But Machiavelli watched him carefully, because Borgia possessed something extremely rare. He understood the psychology of power. When Borgia took control of a region filled with corruption and crime, the people were suffering under chaos. So he appointed a brutal enforcer to restore order. This man punished criminals harshly. Fear spread through the region. Crime disappeared quickly, but soon the people began to hate the enforcer. And this is where Borgia revealed his genius. One morning, the people woke up to a shocking sight. The brutal enforcer had been executed publicly, his body displayed in the town square. The message was clear. Borgia appeared as the hero who freed the people from cruelty. But the truth was far more strategic. The enforcer had served his purpose. He restored order. Then Borgia removed him to win the people's loyalty. Cruelty had been used, but blame had been redirected. Machiavelli watched this and realized something powerful. People judge what they see not what actually happened. And those who understand perception can shape reality itself. Now think about the average good person. They believe fairness will naturally protect them. They believe honesty will automatically earn respect. They believe kindness will be returned. But Machiavelli observed that human beings are not that simple. People admire virtue, but they follow strength. They respect sing confidence, and they often obey those who understand how to control perception. This is why many good people lose, because they assume everyone else is playing the same ethical game. But many people are playing something entirely different. A game of influence, a game of strategy, a game where emotions, fear, loyalty, and reputation are tools. Machiavelli believed that the greatest mistake a good person can make is confusing being good with being naive, because the world contains both moral individuals and opportunists. And if you refuse to recognize the opportunists, you become predictable. And predictable people are easy to manipulate. This is not a comfortable truth, but it is a necessary one. Machiavelli once wrote a chilling observation. A ruler who wishes to survive must learn how not to be good when circumstances demand it. This statement shocked readers for centuries. But Machiavelli was not encouraging cruelty. He was encouraging awareness, because goodness without boundaries becomes weakness. And weakness attracts exploitation. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you seen this pattern? The honest employee passed over for promotion. The loyal friend taken for granted. The generous person constantly asked for more. Meanwhile, the confident manipulator gains influence. Why? Because the manipulator understands something the good person ignores. Human nature. And Machiavelli believed that understanding. Human nature was the most important skill anyone could develop, because once you see how people truly behave, their strategies stop surprising you. Their manipulations become predictable, and suddenly you are no longer playing the game blindly, you're playing it consciously. This is the moment when the philosophy of Machiavelli becomes truly powerful, not because it teaches cruelty, but because it teaches clarity. Clarity about power. Clarity about influence. Clarity about the hidden forces that shape human decisions. And once you gain that clarity, you no longer have to lose simply because you are good. You can remain moral, while also becoming intelligent about the world around you. Because the real lesson of Machiavelli is not that goodness fails. The real lesson is that goodness without strategy rarely survives. And in the next part of this exploration, we will uncover the deeper, psychological reasons why good people become targets for manipulation, the subtle signals that predators look for, and the hidden behaviors that silently place kind people at a disadvantage. Because once you see these patterns, you can never unsee them, and the world will start to make a lot more sense. Once you begin to see the world through the lens of strategy rather than pure morality, something subtle begins to change inside your mind. Situations that once felt confusing start to make sense. You begin to notice patterns. Why certain people dominate every room they enter. Why some individuals always seem to control conversations. Why a few personalities effortlessly gather influence, while others quietly fade into the background. This is the layer of human behavior that fascinated Niccolò Machiavelli. Because Machiavelli realized that human society operates on two different levels. The first level is the one most people talk about openly. This is the world of morals, kindness, honesty, fairness, integrity. Parents teach their children these principles. Teachers repeat them. Religious traditions praise them. And society claims these values are the foundation of civilization. But beneath this visible layer exists another level, a deeper system, a hidden operating structure of human behavior. This is the world of power, perception, influence, fear, ambition, and survival. It is rarely discussed openly, but it silently shapes everything. The promotions people receive, the leaders people follow, the respect people give, and the control certain individuals maintain over others. Most good people spend their entire lives focused only on the first level. They assume everyone else is operating under the same moral structure. But Machiavelli observed something different. He realized that many successful individuals move comfortably between both worlds. They speak the language of morality, but they play the game of strategy. And this is where the imbalance begins, because when a moral person meets a strategic one, the outcome is rarely equal. The strategic person understands both systems. The moral person understands only one. This creates an invisible advantage. It's like playing a game where one player knows the rules while the other believes the game does not even exist. Machiavelli described this idea with extraordinary clarity in his famous work, The Prince. He wrote that a ruler must learn how to appear virtuous while maintaining the ability to act without virtue when necessary. To many readers, this sounded sinister, but Machiavelli was not celebrating deception. He was revealing a psychological truth about human perception. People do not reward virtue itself. They reward the appearance of virtue combined with strength. This is a subtle but powerful distinction. A person who is purely good but powerless often receives sympathy, but a person who appears good while demonstrating strength receives respect. Respect is the currency of power, and Machiavelli understood that respect is rarely given to those who cannot defend themselves. To understand why good people often struggle, we must examine a hidden trait many kind individuals possess. It is something Machiavelli never named directly, but he observed it constantly. It is the desire to be liked by everyone. Good people often believe harmony is the highest value. They avoid conflict. They avoid confrontation. They hesitate to challenge others. They forgive quickly. They assume that maintaining peace is the same as maintaining respect. But Machiavelli observed something uncomfortable. Peace without boundaries invites domination. When people sense that someone refuses to create conflict under any circumstances, they begin to push further and further, not always consciously. Sometimes it happens instinctively. Human beings constantly test limits. This happens in friendships, in workplaces, in politics, and even within families. When someone refuses to enforce boundaries, the system naturally reorganizes itself. Power shifts toward those who are willing to assert themselves. This is not necessarily evil. It is simply human nature. Machiavelli believed that a wise leader must understand this instinct deeply, because once people realize they can act without consequence, respect disappears quickly. And respect, once lost, is extremely difficult to restore. There is an ancient tension inside human psychology. People want kindness, but they also want security. And security comes from strength. This is why many individuals admire leaders who combine calm, compassion with undeniable authority. They feel protected, but when someone demonstrates only kindness without strength, the subconscious reaction changes. Instead of feeling protected, people begin to feel free to take advantage. This is one of the greatest paradoxes Machiavelli discovered. The more someone tries to be universally liked, the less they are truly respected. And without respect, influence becomes fragile. Think about the environments where power struggles are most visible: corporate offices, political systems, competitive industries. In these environments, the individuals who rise are rarely the most moral. They are usually the most perceptive. They understand personalities. They detect weakness. They anticipate betrayal. And most importantly, they understand perception. Because power is not simply about actions. It is about how those actions are interpreted by others. This was the lesson Machiavelli learned while observing the rise of Cesare Borgia. Borgia was not merely ruthless, he was psychologically precise. He knew that fear alone could create obedience, but it could also create rebellion. He knew that love alone could create loyalty, but it could also create weakness. So he balanced both forces carefully. Machiavelli watched him navigate an unstable political landscape filled with betrayal, conspiracies, and rival families. Yet Borgia remained composed, strategic, patient. He rarely reacted emotionally. Instead, he studied people. He observed how individuals responded to pressure. He watched how quickly alliances shifted, and he understood something critical. People are far more predictable than they appear. Fear motivates them, ambition drives them, security comforts them, and opportunity tempts them. A ruler who understands these motivations can guide behavior without constant force. This insight fascinated Machiavelli because it revealed that controlling events was often less important than controlling perception. If people believe a leader is powerful, they behave differently. If people believe someone is weak, they behave differently. Perception shapes reality, and this brings us back to the struggle many good people face. Good individuals often assume their intentions are enough. They believe others will naturally recognize their fairness. But Machiavelli saw something different. He noticed that intentions are invisible, only actions and perception are visible. A person might be extremely kind inside their heart, but if they appear uncertain, hesitant, or easily pressured, the world will respond to that signal, not to the goodness inside them. This is why Machiavelli believed understanding human nature was more valuable than simply hoping for fairness. He knew the world rarely functions on hope. It functions on incentives, fears, ambitions, and perceptions. Good people often fail to recognize this because they project their own values onto others. They assume others feel guilt the same way they do. They assume others respect honesty the same way they do. But Machiavelli observed that many individuals prioritize advantage above all else. This does not mean everyone is corrupt, but it means the system contains a mixture of motives. Some people are genuinely principled, others are purely opportunistic, and many move between both states depending on circumstances. A wise person must understand this spectrum, otherwise they become vulnerable to those who operate differently. Machiavelli believed that the strongest leaders were not those who rejected morality completely, nor those who clung to morality blindly. The strongest leaders understood when to apply each principle, when to forgive, when to confront, when to appear gentle, when to demonstrate force. This balance requires emotional control and psychological awareness. Without those qualities, even good intentions can lead to defeat, because the world does not reward intentions, it rewards outcomes. This realization was deeply controversial when Machiavelli wrote about it. Many critics accused him of encouraging immoral behavior, but Machiavelli believed he was simply revealing the mechanics of reality. He wanted leaders to stop pretending the world was ideal and instead learn how to survive within its imperfections. Because pretending danger does not exist does not eliminate danger. It only blinds you to it. And the same principle applies to human relationships. A person who refuses to acknowledge manipulation becomes easier to manipulate. A person who refuses to recognize ambition becomes easier to outmaneuver. And a person who refuses to confront exploitation becomes easier to exploit. Goodness should never require blindness. That was the deeper message hidden inside Machiavelli's philosophy. Because the goal is not to abandon morality. The goal is to protect morality with intelligence. Without strategy, goodness becomes fragile. But when goodness is combined with awareness, boundaries, and strength, it becomes extremely difficult to defeat. And this brings us to the next critical insight Machiavelli discovered: the subtle signals manipulators use to identify easy targets. Signals that most people never realize they are sending. Because manipulators are not always obvious villains. Many appear charming, helpful, friendly, even supportive. But beneath that surface lies a quiet calculation. They are observing, testing, Measuring reactions, searching for individuals who hesitate to defend themselves. Because once they find those individuals, the game begins, and in the next part of this exploration, we will uncover one of Machiavelli's most uncomfortable observations about human behavior, the hidden reason manipulators are often drawn toward good people, and the psychological traits that unintentionally invite exploitation. Once you understand this dynamic, you begin to see social interactions in a completely different way, and the patterns of power that once seemed mysterious start to reveal themselves everywhere. By now, a deeper pattern is beginning to appear. It is no longer just a question of morality. It is a question of human nature, because once you understand the mechanics behind power, perception, and influence, something becomes painfully clear. Manipulators do not choose their targets randomly. They observe, they listen, they test reactions, and over time they become very skilled at identifying the individuals who are least likely to resist them. This is why many good people repeatedly find themselves surrounded by the same type of personalities. The controlling friend, the demanding colleague, the manipulative leader. At first it seems like bad luck, but Machiavelli would argue something different. He would say that human behavior sends signals constantly. Signals of confidence, signals of fear, signals of authority, and unfortunately, many good people unknowingly broadcast a signal that says one simple thing: I will not fight back. This does not mean they are weak. It means they are reluctant to create conflict. And to someone seeking advantage, that hesitation becomes an opportunity. This observation was central to the thinking of Niccolò Machiavelli, because Machiavelli believed a world is filled with individuals who are constantly negotiating their position. Within social hierarchies, they are measuring influence. They are testing boundaries. They are evaluating who has power and who does not. Sometimes these tests are obvious: a direct challenge, a harsh criticism, a demand for something unreasonable, but often the tests are subtle. A small favor that slowly becomes a larger favor, a joke that crosses the line of respect, a responsibility quietly shifted onto someone else's shoulders. Each of these moments is a small experiment, and the response determines what happens next. If the response is confident and firm, the test usually stops there. But if the response is hesitation, discomfort, or silent acceptance, the test evolves. The pressure grows, the expectations increase, and eventually the dynamic becomes established. One person leads, the other accommodates. This is how power structures form in everyday life, not through dramatic confrontations, but through hundreds of tiny moments where boundaries are either enforced or surrendered. Machiavelli understood that people rarely respect kindness that comes from fear. They only respect kindness that comes from strength. This is why he famously wrote that it is safer for a ruler to be feared than loved, if he cannot be both. Many people misunderstood this statement as praise for cruelty, but Machiavelli was describing something psychological. Love is fragile. It depends on emotion, and emotions change quickly. Fear, on the other hand, creates stability. It establishes clear limits. But Machiavelli did not believe a ruler should rely purely on fear. That would create hatred, and hatred leads to rebellion. Instead, he believed the ideal leader balanced two forces carefully: respect and restraint, strength and fairness, authority and mercy. This balance creates a powerful signal. It tells people that kindness exists, but weakness does not. And that signal changes everything. When people know someone will defend their boundaries calmly and firmly, manipulation becomes extremely difficult, because manipulation requires uncertainty. It requires hesitation. It requires the belief that pressure will eventually succeed. Remove that belief, and the entire strategy collapses. This is the hidden reason manipulators often avoid confident individuals. They search for easier paths, paths where resistance is minimal, where guilt can be triggered, where sympathy can be exploited. And good people often become perfect candidates for this strategy, not because they lack intelligence, But because they value harmony more than confrontation, they worry about appearing rude. They worry about hurting feelings. They worry about damaging relationships. Manipulators understand these fears instinctively, and they use them, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unconsciously, but the effect is always the same. The good person slowly sacrifices their time, energy, and influence while the manipulator quietly expands theirs. Machiavelli believed that anyone who wishes to survive in a competitive world must learn to recognize this dynamic early, because once a pattern of exploitation becomes established, reversing it becomes far more difficult. It is much easier to set boundaries at the beginning than to rebuild them after they have been ignored for years. This is why Machiavelli admired leaders who understood timing. A decisive action at the right moment could prevent endless problems later. But hesitation often multiplied those problems. To illustrate this lesson, Machiavelli once again pointed to the political brilliance of Cesare Borgia. Borgia did something that many leaders failed to do. He acted early. When potential rivals appeared, he did not wait for them to grow stronger. He addressed the situation immediately, sometimes through negotiation, sometimes through alliances, and sometimes through ruthless elimination. While modern society operates under very different rules, the psychological principle remains the same. Problems ignored rarely disappear, they evolve. Small manipulations grow into large expectations. Minor disrespect grows into open disregard, and kindness without limits slowly transforms into exploitation. Machiavelli believed wisdom lies in recognizing the moment, when patience must end and clarity must begin, because boundaries do not destroy relationships. They reveal the true nature of them. A genuine friend will respect a boundary. A manipulator will resist it, and that resistance tells you everything you need to know. This is where Machiavelli's philosophy becomes surprisingly empowering rather than dark, because the purpose of understanding manipulation is not to become manipulative. It is to become immune to manipulation. Awareness changes the entire game. Once you recognize the patterns of influence, you begin to see them everywhere. You notice how authority is projected through posture and voice. You notice how confidence shapes the way others respond. You notice how quickly social dynamics change when someone calmly refuses unfair demands. And most importantly, you realize something that Machiavelli understood centuries ago. Goodness and strength are not opposites. They are partners. Without strength, goodness can be exploited. Without goodness, strength becomes tyranny. But when both qualities exist together, something powerful emerges. A person who is fair but unshakable, kind but impossible to dominate, respectful but never submissive. This is the kind of individual Machiavelli believed could truly navigate the complexities of human society, not the naive idealist who assumes everyone plays by the same moral code, and not the ruthless opportunist who abandons morality completely, but the rare individual who sees the world clearly and still chooses to act with principle. Because true wisdom lies in understanding reality without surrendering your values. The world may sometimes reward manipulation. It may sometimes elevate ambition over integrity. But the people who endure, the people who maintain influence, respect, and stability over long periods of time are rarely the most ruthless. They are the most aware. They understand human nature. They anticipate deception. They protect their boundaries. And yet they still choose fairness when fairness is possible. This is the real lesson hidden inside Machiavelli's philosophy. It is not a guide to cruelty. It is a warning against blindness, because goodness without awareness can lose. But goodness combined with perception becomes extraordinarily powerful. When you learn to recognize manipulation, you stop fearing it. When you understand power, you stop resenting it. And when you develop the courage to defend your values intelligently, you no longer have to sacrifice goodness in order to survive. You simply stop allowing it to be used against you. And perhaps that is the greatest insight Machiavelli left behind. The world is not divided between good people and powerful people. The strongest individuals are those who learn how to become both. Alright guys, I hope you liked this video, and please subscribe this channel to get more valuable videos like this. Thanks for watching.